Hello, St. Andrew's friends. It's a special Sunday because we've got a very special guest. This is Sarah Mercer, and she's a member of Heritage United Church, and she's agreed to help share in our reflection this morning. So our topic today is on local social justice, especially about houselessness. And so I wanted to have Sarah first introduce herself so that you can understand where she's coming from, and then we'll get right down into the issues. So Sarah, can you introduce yourself to everybody and tell us what your background is?
Absolutely. Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Sarah Mercer, and I am a registered social worker here in Regina for the past 13 years. Born and raised here, all of my education was also here locally. I've worked for nonprofit and government organizations, so have a nice, well-rounded basis of understanding here in Regina and our local communities.
Great. So first question is, the term we're using today is houselessness. Can you tell us why we want to use that rather than homelessness?
Absolutely. A lot of us have an understanding of the word home. Home is a connection to, where we lay our heads, where we put our children to sleep, and where we pray together. And having an understanding that majority of those experiencing houselessness are Indigenous folks. We understand that Indigenous folks are not without a home. Turtle Island, here in which we reside, is their home. It is a house in which they do not have. Therefore, to be appropriate and respectful, we say houselessness to honor those Indigenous folks that are rooted here in Turtle Island, which is their home.
Okay, so the houselessness issue really changed in Saskatchewan in 2021. Can you walk us back and explain how things changed?
So initially, for many, many years, income assistance here in Saskatchewan, the government would pay our landlords directly for all deposits and damages. So what this would do is ensure housing for the individual as the landlord was going to be paid directly. Now what has changed is the landlords are not paid directly. The funds are being distributed to the individuals who receive the income assistance. Therefore, unfortunately, sometimes rent is not being paid. We have to understand the underlying issues that are preventing folks from being able to pay for rent on their own. We understand that addictions are a huge factor in houselessness, as well as mental health. And those two factors in themselves can make it quite difficult to have the daily responsibilities of paying for your bills and paying for rent. Also in compounding, we had COVID-19 that came by, increase in rates of our utilities, increase in fees for our housing, gas prices, grocery prices. So on top of now folks having to pay for their homes on their own, they're also their bills on top of it. So we're finding that the amount of money in which people are receiving in the first place is not able to cover rent, groceries, and bills on top of things. So often folks are finding themselves that they're only able to pay for maybe one or two of those things throughout the month, risking them to be cut off from different utilities, as well as, again, losing their rent. Furthermore, people who are on income assistance and have been really successful with paying their bills, they've had no issues, landlords are discriminating against those that are on income assistance. Because they know that rent is not guaranteed by payment from the government anymore, what they're really concerned about is if they do rent to a person on income assistance, is this person going to pay for me? So now we kind of have a two-tier issue of transferring responsibility to the individual who hasn't been assessed to necessarily be able to do the responsibilities of paying for the bills. But then we also have landlords that are also not offering housing to people that would be able to would be able to pay for the housing. So we're also seeing a lot of families, single parents, children that are now experiencing houselessness due to this discrimination.
Do you want to add anything to that?
I think that covers it.
Something to be aware of is that when you're driving in downtown Regina, it's easy to see the houselessness situation because you can see the people on the streets. But these issues affect everyone across Saskatchewan, even in Lumsden, right? It's just sometimes in smaller towns, it's hidden. And it's Is that something you can share about why?
Yeah, absolutely. So quite a few of our city bylaws prevent people from loitering, to do panhandling, to erect structures in which would keep them safe. So we're really forcing our folks that don't have houses further into the shadows, meaning that they're having to go into back alleys and abandoned buildings. So it's the bylaws are enacted to, make us all feel comfortable, to make us all feel safe, and to be a community, have the counter effect of actually pushing people further into the darkness. So we have what's called hidden houselessness. Then we have, a lot of issues, of course, with our tent communities. So we saw a recent tent community come up here in Regina that stayed about 40 days, and then bylaws were enacted to prevent them. Those folks did not secure housing after the fact. What they did have to do then is set up their tents in alleys and different kind of abandoned areas where there's less access to supports, less access to the supportive people in their community, less access to the community members themselves, as well as less access to emergencies such as fire, police, ambulance. And with that as well, I had mentioned earlier, of course, a lot of folks that are experiencing substance misuse and addictions are experiencing houselessness. And what we're seeing then is also an increase in fatal opioid poisonings, because when somebody is experiencing an opioid poisoning in the shadows, we aren't able to support them and provide life-saving measures.
Yeah, and another face of houselessness is couch surfing, and that's something that you might see more in rural areas. Is folks who don't have their own place will be staying with friends or their family members or bouncing around from place to place. So that's another face of hidden houselessness. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and absolutely, the folks that are, that are couch surfing, essentially, they're still continuously in that means of survival, and preventing them to move over to thrive, right? Where they're constantly looking, where's my next meal? Where's my next bed? And often they're bouncing around in situations that aren't creating places of safety. There might be substance use that's happening in the homes as well. So even though they might have a roof over their head that night, they're constantly in that survival mode.
Right. So the situation now is that we don't seem to have a cohesive plan in Saskatchewan to deal with houselessness. And now the cold weather is here, and this is just making things a lot more urgent. So we didn't want to just throw all the stats at you and have you feel depressed. We really wanted to talk about what we can do more at a grassroots level to address the situation. And this is where Sarah shines, because this is her passion. This is something she does well, and she's sharing this with others. So this is why I really wanted her to talk with you today, to share what comes from her heart. So take it away.
With all of that information thrown at you, the question can be, well, what can I do as an individual? What can I do as a community? What can I do as a church? It can become overwhelming. So there is the micro level that we can address, and then there's the macro level that we can address. As the micro level, as individuals, there are a lot of things that we can do to just humanize an individual. We walk past folks every single day in Regina. You're going to see it in other communities as well. Hold your head up high, look the folks in the eye, say good morning, say good afternoon, how are you? Don't be scared to receive an answer back that you might not want to hear. In terms of, I'm not doing well today. Hold that space for them in that moment, look them in the eye and greet them. Let them know that you see them and you value them, and they aren't somebody that's just sitting on a pathway. God has provided that person for you to cross in that pathway. Take advantage of that moment. Other little things is instead of, perhaps giving money, is giving food. So if you're at a grocery store, often we're seeing folks hanging around grocery stores or 7-Elevens. It's easy to, grab a ham sandwich and a bottle of water and pass it to them on their way out. That also, it creates action for other folks. If people see you doing something like offering a sandwich to somebody else, that's going to spark them to create that same kind of passion within them to say, I can also do this. Ripple effects. Other things, of course, Reverend Joy mentioned, we're heading into the winter season. Things like mittens, toques, scarves, winter jackets. I've really challenged my inner circle to look inside their own closets. Do you need 5 toques? Do you need 5 mittens? You know, it's not about going out, going to Walmart, spending the money. Look inside your own home and do a little bit of analysis. Do I need 5 toques, or do 3 other people, can I pass along those toques? So look at what you have in your own home and assess what you have to offer. There's also other little things that we've seen the community do is do a hygiene drive. So variety of products are really necessary: toothpaste, toothbrushes, shampoo, conditioner. Challenge yourself to do a drive. Go on your social media, put it out there, say, I'm collecting these items, what can you do? You're always going to have one person that's going to come back with you. If they drop off 6 toothpaste, that's 6 people that you're supporting. Think creatively. Too many times we think about how can money fix the problem. It's not going to happen. It's going to come from within us. So whether that I said, you know, doing a shout out on your social media, connecting with your neighbors, say that I've got 2 blankets. Do you have a couple blankets that we can drop off? Engage with your local community. Lumsden, there has to be some organizations or local supports that are collecting such items. If you're coming into Regina, there's lots of organizations and nonprofits that are accepting warm clothing donations. We also have 3 community fridges in Regina. I'm not going to necessarily challenge you, Lumsden, to open a community fridge, but if you want to, we've got the recipe here for you. So if you have, you've got groceries that are picked up, or you've seen sales at the grocery store, pick up a couple extra items and head to the community fridge if you're in the town and drop them off. If there's organizations in Lumsden that are also accepting food donations, pick up a couple extra things on your trip to drop those off. Those really can make a difference. On a more macro level, thinking about a more system change, letter writing. Write to your local city official, write to your local MLAs. Write all the way to the top to social services and demand action. Every single voice matters. Every single letter matters. And imagine just seeing that stat grow. Reach out and use your voices and continue to demand that change. We can do that as individuals. We can also do that as a community. Start a letter writing campaign. Be ambitious.
I love this passion. I love how much you care and how much it shows through everything that you do. So I hope that some of what Sarah has shared with us today will spark something in you and maybe help us to do something helpful in Lumsden. Just as a side note, I just wanted you to think about our scripture reading for today. So it's the story about the workers in the vineyard. And this is a beautiful story to show the importance of a guaranteed livable income. That's the whole point of the story, right? It doesn't matter if the worker worked all day or just the last part of the day. The owner of the vineyard gave the same to everyone, right? And so that sense of taking care of everyone, of making sure that everyone has enough to meet their basic needs, this is biblical. This is something that is incredibly important and something that we should all be embracing as Christians. So there's a lot of information on guaranteed livable income on the United Church of Canada webpage. So you can find out more about the issues. And again, it will give you some resources to help do some letter writing, to help get the news out there so that more and more people can get on board with helping to make this a policy for all people, not just Saskatchewan, but across Canada. So hopefully we have fired you up and that you've got lots of ideas and you're just brimming with the possibilities of what we can do to help out those who are less fortunate here in Saskatchewan. So from both Sarah and I, we say have a wonderful day and thanks so much for sharing with us in this time of reflection.